Hello everybody and welcome! Some of you might have seen my latest shorts video where I flew this VTOL plane to the Pyramids Easter egg close to the desert launch site in Kerbal Space Program. In this video I will show you how I built it and what you need to keep in mind when creating your own VTOL plane. For those of you wondering, what's a VTOL? It's an acronym for Vertical Takeoff and Landing. Probably the most iconic of these aircraft was the Harrier jump jet, first developed by British manufacturer Hawker Siddeley and later the Harrier 2 by McDonnell Douglas. It was produced in multiple variants from 1967 to 2003. Nowadays, probably the best known VTOL is the F-35B by Lockheed Martin. I thought while building some VTOL I could tell you a bit about how these planes work and what we can learn from them for our own builds here in this game. Alright, I thought we start with something similar to what I did in that Easter egg video. So first we need a fuselage. What I really like to do is that I build something, well, that looks a bit like the Eurofighter from a design standpoint. So what I do is I make a lower part of the body, so I have this upper cockpit part and then the lower part of the fuselage, and then we are adding some more fuel tanks. That should be enough. Let's also have an end here, because as I did in the previous video, I want to have the engines on the side, which is in actuality similar to how the Harrier works. If you are not familiar with the Harrier was a fascinating piece of machinery which had one big engine in the center and had four exhausts on the side. So basically what it did is it had two cold exhausts in the front and two hot exhausts in the back, which the hot exhausts were mostly used, of course, for horizontal flight to have the best thrusting capabilities. But of course, once they rotated it, they would have vertical flight capability. What I want is reaction wheels, because in Kerbal Space Program you really need to keep your balance with your vehicles, and it's easier to do when you have a bunch of reaction wheels attached. Let's switch to radial symmetry and put them over here a little bit inside so we can create that fairing around. So, and let's move this window out of the way. And then we can create our nose in the front. There we go. Looks good. Maybe we can add another one before it clips through. Maybe even more. Yes, that's possible. Alright, so before we start with the engines and get the VTOL ready, let's try to have the shape a little bit better. There we go. I don't need oxidizer, that's why I remove it over there. I just need the regular liquid fuel, because we have liquid fuel and air. Our air through the air intakes acts as the same thing as the oxidizer does for the rocket engines. Okay, so where is the center of mass? Over here. And that's where we want to have our engines. But before we can have that, let's give this thing a little bit more of wings and stuff. So I'm going to take this here, and I'm going to have the engines smack dab here in the middle. And then I'm going to also have a tail, of course. We need some stabilization. For some reason, when I build aircraft, I really like to have a big tail. Tail fin. Not sure that it helps. I'm not good at aerodynamics. This is a question you should ask people who are. Alright, let's finish that up. We don't need pitch and roll over here on these control surfaces. Just the yaw control. We only want this yawing. And then I also want to have some control surfaces over here. And we don't want them yawing. We don't want them up front here yawing either. So these wings here in the middle are just for keeping it floating, keeping it gliding when we're not thrusting. All right, so how can we do that? Let's get to this menu here over here with the robotics. So I'm making heavy use of the robotics from Kerbal Space Program's Breaking Ground expansion. And we want to have that here in the center. I switch to this one. And if you use Autostrut with robotics, always use the grandparent part. At least that's what helped me the most to keep things stable. And then we put the engine over here, and then we put this thing over there. And what I now want to do is to move it a little bit over here. It looks a tad bit more realistic. I mean, it's Kerbal Space Program. Nothing here is realistic. But at least we can try a little. And we move it over here with our translation tool. And we switch this to white or black. No, black is actually better. And then over here with you. There we go. Alright, so the engine is sort of in the middle, and if we rotate this in the center of gravity, I wanted to say, if we rotate this, then it stays in the center of gravity, mostly. What you can also do here is, so that you don't overshoot your rotation, is to click here, allow full rotation, and say no, and then limit what the rotation capabilities of this thing can be. So we want this to have a range from 0 to 90. And this is very finicky and really hard to get, so I usually open up this submenu here and just type in the numbers if I want it really precise. And now there we go, we have our limiters as they should be. And if you have the mod Kerbal Engineer Redux installed, which I highly recommend you do because it is really, really helpful. So over here you can see the torque indicator above the center of mass, and look how it changes when I change my target angle. Now it's at 8, and well, the lower the better. The higher this is, the more unstable the things get. We can also use the center of thrust indicator, and we can see it's a little bit off the center of mass. So what can we do? Either we move the engine or we move the mass. So this is what I'm going to try here. You see, I move the mass, and I remove mass, I remove fuel, and the torque indicator changes. So let's follow up with here. Now we can move the engines a little bit further back, because I like it a little bit further back, to be honest. You see the thrust indicator is moving, and also the torque numbers are changing. Ideally, they are around 0, but yeah, it's really hard to manage that. So what we can do now, or what we should do now, is also add some landing gear. And therefore, I need this menu here, over here. Let's get some landing gear over there. And what I like to do here is to have landing gear on the outside of the wing, because that increases stability, especially when you do a vertical takeoff or landing. And this is also, by the way, something that the Harrier had. So the Harrier jump jet had 2 sets of wheels in the center and 2 sets of wheels at the wingtip. So one on the left, one wheel on the left wingtip and one wheel on the right wingtip. Or do you say port and starboard in aviation? I don't know. I'm not familiar with that. You should ask people who are actually flying. I am not. Okay, and of course we need also a landing gear up top. At least one. Because something with 2 wheels will probably fall over without active management. And something with 3 wheels could fall over, but it will never wobble. Something, well, it will in Kerbal Space Program, but in real life, things that are on 3 feet will be rock stable, or it will fall over. So there we go. We have our thingamajig here. And what I want to do here is I want to assign a action group to my wings, and then I also want to assign an action group to switching the mode so I can activate the afterburners. So the idea behind this is that the way I built this vehicle is I have the control surface front and the back, so they help stabilize while we're in hover mode. And let's take for a spin, shall we? So once it is loaded, we have our usual KSP weirdness of landing gear. Yay, isn't that nice? Maybe we can just try to fly. Well, the engine is all tilting. We'll activate our afterburner. And yes, whoa! I'm not sure why that happened, but... Again! I got my engines starved of air, at least it looked like it. So how can we remedy that? I used those intakes, and maybe I should, for good measure and for good looks, I add some more over here. What do you say? Maybe that was the reason why that thing was bouncing around, because this was not rigid yet. And maybe we can do this here. Spring damper auto. Well, maybe if we reduce the spring and increase the damper strength, so it does not jump around, but has enough strength to withstand its own mass. Let's try this again. Okay, we are now stable, and we're not wobbling. That's good. So my landing gear tweak has worked. Well, now it starts to wobble. KSP, ain't you fantastic? You know what, before we go into VTOL mode, let's try these engines out, whether or not they actually work the way they should. Okay, control surfaces in the airstream are usually not a good idea. It seems like... Yep, it seems like it's not working. Seems like these two control surfaces are blocking. Wow! Okay. Now I'm flying. Okay, I need to fix this, I guess. But we are flying, and not too shabby, I might add. For something I came up in just a few minutes, I think it's doing well. So, engines are firing, and we are landed. Yes, that was great. So let's try something different. I mentioned before that the Harrier and the F-35B are probably the most iconic, at least at the moment, vertical takeoff and landing vehicles. Now, the F-35B is a very different beast from the Harrier. It too has a central engine, but unlike the Harrier, it does not have 4 nozzles on the outside. It has one big engine nozzle in the back, and then a lift fan, and then 2 roll nozzles. The big engine in the back utilizes the hot exhaust, and the roll nozzles do as well, which is fascinating actually. Lockheed Martin made this really complicated, at least it looks complicated, thing that the engine points downwards, but still has all of that air duct, so to speak, visible. So that's not gonna happen here, I guess, but still we're going to need a 90-degree angle and limit it to 0 to 90 over here. So how can we maybe do this? So I can slide this to the center of that one. and slide that one over here. So we have some part clipping, but at least while it's flying, it looks okay. Let's try to create the wings of the F-35B. So let's go with these. They are not really perfect from the looks department. They don't look exactly like the F-35s, but it will have to do. There we go. Okay, you might have noticed in the meantime I switched the cockpit out to this thing here because, yeah, that space plane look was not really working for me. What do we do up front? I really hate that there is not a structural part or something that can close up a cargo bay and that you don't have to use this stupid probe core and then still have to do some other work to seal it up or something. That looks really stupid. But yeah, that's how things are in Kerbal Space Program. Sometimes they're stupid. And we need some air intakes. Maybe not those, maybe I will take the other ones. Because the F-35 is a stealthy boy. And it has these stealthy looking, edgy intakes. So maybe these will work better. Okay, we have over here room to put in that. Yep, I want a big reaction wheel over there. I'm going to add some roll engines and therefore I'm going to need the Junos, but my problem is they're probably too big. Yeah, that's way too big to look any good. And I don't want them sticking out of the wing like sore thumbs. No, that's not good. But let's see, maybe we can work something out. How about this? Let's put it like that, huh? No, of course not. Let's close this up and see how far we can put it down before the tip comes through. Now we have the tip poking through and we have that over here. I mean, we could use that as sort of a visual statement, sort of. Oh, 0.09. Oh, that's good. What we can do, because the real F-35 has some sort of flaps, not flaps over here. It has the thing that opens for the lift fan. The door? The port, the vent, I don't know how to call it. We're not going to use those for braking. We're just going to use this for visual effects. What I want to have here is a controller. It will enable us to do all the things we need to do with just one button and not 2 or 3 or whatever. So what do we want to do? First, we want to open our cargo bay. At the same time, we want to spin up all of these. And then we also want to have this here at 90 degrees. All of this within the span of 5 minutes. Minutes? Seconds, of course. Okay, let's give this a name and save this. So, let's call this F-35K, because it's a Kerbal variant. Let's see how that works, shall we? Alrighty then, here we have our F-35B, sort of. And let's see if we can toggle the engine. Check your staging, because I don't need all of the engines, I just need the one at the moment. And what does it not have? It does not have air. We don't have enough air. Status occluded. I have fixed my air intake, I hope. So let's see what happens. Afterburner on. And we're flying. And it flies quite nicely, I might add. I mean, the wings are a bit huge in my opinion, so this is probably more a glider than anything. And it's not really as fast as you might expect from a joint strike fighter, but I guess the profile looks well enough. Okay, let's see what happens when we switch to VTOL mode. Oh yes. Oh no. Oops. Intake air deprived. That's not good. That can only mean one thing.
Again.
Alright. New type of air intakes. Let's see if that does us any good. This is starting to remind me a little bit of the real F-35 development, because if I remember correctly, that also had a lot of delays and problems. So yeah, let's see how we can do here. Yeah. That looks bad. It looks really bad. I'm not sure what I was expecting, but this is not how a VTOL should look like, should it? It's more like a stranded dragon or something, and I don't mean the space capsule.
Again.
So what actually works is if I really do that short takeoff vertical landing approach, meaning that I activate the VTOL mode, but I angle the engine back a little bit so that we get some forward momentum. As soon as we do have that, then the center engine or the lift fan engine has enough thrust to perform the operations that we need. So let's see if we can actually get it landing. Probably not, because I think we still don't. Yeah, I mean, it still has 100% propellant requirements. But yeah, suddenly it drops, and then so does the plane. Yay! Well, that's landed.
Again.
Alright, I think I solved my air intake problem. See, these offer the most air intake by mass. So what I'm going to do here is I attached a small grip pad to the outside, and then I just clip them inside because I'm weird like that. No, the reason why this still works is because the grip pad, which is sort of the root part for that air intake part, is still on the outside. So the game thinks, yeah, this is on the outside, this gets air, so the air intake gets air, even though it is squarely inside the body of the plane, or rather fuselage in this case. Let's try this one last time. Going to be really careful with spinning up these fans or engines, because that center fan spins up way slower than the Panther in the back, so I need to be aware of this. And let's give it a little bit more the beans. Closing in on, yes, we now have more than 1.0 TWR, so a thrust of weight to weight ratio is higher than 1. And we have stable flight with our hidden air intakes in here. So yeah, is this cheating? I don't know, you tell me. Is this cheating, or is this just working around the constraints of the game? Look at that. Power sliding in a jet fighter. And almost crashing because I can't fly it inverted. I'm too stupid for that. So yes, the F-35K is now finally a success and a successfully flying VTOL. Actually a VTOL, not just a short takeoff and vertical landing plane. This is a VTOL. And I think we can try to land on that VAB building over there, right? So let's do that. Closing in on the deck. And up, land, stop. Yes. There we go. We have landed our VTOL on the VAB. So how about we take it to the island over there, right? Oops, don't. As I said, you need to be careful with... Yeah. I meant to say you shouldn't be careful with increasing thrust too quickly, because that little Weasley engine is not really suited for that.
Again!
Alright, so we're not going to launch from the VAB building, we're not going to launch from the runway. And what I'm going to try now is transitioning from vertical to horizontal flights. So I set up my action group and that was a bit rough. Maybe I should fine-tune it a little bit, but it worked. And we can now fly in horizontal flight. No problem. So how can we transition? How does it fare when we transition back to vertical flight? Can we land in front of the hangars without crashing? Let's bleed off some speed. I'm sure there is a pilot watching that's getting a heart attack when he sees me doing this. Whoops. Yeah, I think I'm going to have a heart attack myself over here. Hey, that was not a bad recovery, if I might say so myself. So, note to self, in VTOL mode, don't exceed certain amount of throttle, because then the discrepancy between the front and the rear engine will create havoc on your maneuverability. And we're landed. So yeah, this concludes my adventures in VTOL building. I hope you have learned something and maybe you can build your own. Tell me in the comments how many cool VTOL planes you already built in Kerbal Space Program, or if this inspired you to do some on your own. I'd love to hear from you guys, as I always do. And we'll see you in the next one. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel for more and follow me on my social thingies. The links are in the description. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.